Hey everyone!
Hey, hey!
And welcome to After Hours here at Linda's Electric Quilters.
We are super excited that you are joining us tonight. We thank you for taking your time out of your night to join us and check out the red snappers and how they go on.
Yes, we love the red snappers for loading on the Longarm machines.
Yep.
It's going to help speed up that process, kind of go away from pinning and moving into the snaps.
Yep.
One thing to always note with red snappers before we get started is they are wonderful for your 100% cotton fabrics, anything like that, but if you're going into minky or cuddle, we're still going to recommend that you do pinning.
Exactly.
Just because that fabric type, the minky, the cuddle, is just a little bit thick.
Yeah, a little bit thick. So basically any kind of thicker mechanism that you're putting on there.
Definitely.
You know, stick to the pinning method, at least on that piece of the fabric, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but no, we love the red snappers. We love that we don't have lots of pricks in our fingers.
That helps out a lot.
And rips in our shirts.
For sure.
From leaning up against it, you know.
We've all had it happen.
We have. We definitely have.
Have you had it happen?
I have. I have quite a few shirts that have holes right down there.
Where?
They're at home.
Where?
I'll show you.
Bring them. I don't believe you.
I will.
Okay.
Proof of the pudding. Proof of the pudding.
Here we go. So when we get started here tonight, now that we're getting started here,
we're here.
The red snappers that we carry on our website are going to come in a 10-foot size, a 12-foot size, and a 14-foot size.
And this is important. So sizes are important. This is the actual size of your table, not your leader. So it's really important that you actually measure your table before you order them so you get the correct size.
Definitely.
Because it's not leader size, it's table size.
And there is the difference.
Yeah.
And definitely measure your table. Sometimes you think you have a 12 and you got a 14, or you think you have a 14 and you have a 10. You'd be surprised. So definitely measure that table before you get started.
Yeah, you definitely want to measure your table. Now, if you have a table that's in between, some people have 8-foot tables, some people have 11-foot tables. Just kind of use your judgment, and you can jump up from one or go to the other size.
Yeah, you're definitely going to want to get the larger of the set. So if you have an 8-foot table, I would get the 10-foot set.
Yeah, for sure.
And
if you have an 11-foot table, then you would get the 12-foot set.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, super good. And I love that the new packaging and the new size that they've come in. We've been doing this for a lot of years, and we when they started, and now they have day, and they used to be really, really long.
Used to be like
double the size. So if you still have some, and they work great.
Yeah.
This is just a newer size, easier for shipping, but also easier for handling as you're snapping them down. So, and Corey's going to show you all that tonight.
Coolio. Yep. So let's talk about what comes in the package.
Alrighty.
So you're going to get the hollow rods that are going to go into the canvas leader, and we'll show you where that is. Majority of long arms have a little sleeve at the end of the canvas leader.
Correct.
And so that's where those rods are going to slide into, and you'll build them as you go, as you're putting them in there. But yeah, they're going to have enough for all 3 of the leaders.
Correct.
So your pickup, your top, and your backing. It'll come with the actual clamps themselves, the full-size ones, and then it comes with 6 of the little 2-inch ones that make it easier to start the loading process.
Exactly. And they do have other sizes available, like if you want something a little bit thicker to go in between. So they have the 12-inch.
12-inch and then the 6-inch.
The 6-inch. And they come in just an extra package that's on our website. Just if you wanted some extra sizes in there, because sometimes the quilt might not quite be the exact same length that you're clipping on, and those just kind of fill in. It's a nice filler inner.
Filler inner. Got it. So that's what's going to come in the package, along with the little dowels that you put the rods together.
Yep. And what's another thing about that is when you get the package and you want to learn how to put them together, there is a QR code on here. You scan it, and it'll take you to Red Snappers themselves, and they have a really good video on how to put it all together.
Yeah, which is really nice. Especially when you first get it and you're like, oh.
Like, what do I do here?
I don't know if this is for me.
Just scan that, and it'll definitely take you there and show you how to put them all together. And then come back and watch Corey's video, and he'll show you how to load it all.
Boop, boop, boop. Speaking of loading, should we just hop over to the machine?
I think we should.
I think it's time.
It's time.
I think it's time. All right, well, we'll hop over there, and let's go have some fun with that.
All right.
So I've got my frame up right now, and I thought we would first start by talking about the sleeve. So we'll come over here camera-wise, and we're going to come on down, and a little bit of a zoom.
And just a quick reference, we will answer questions at the end of the video, so if you have questions, please put them in. We definitely will get to them at the end.
Awesome. So right here, this was the little sleeve that I was referring to. At the end of your canvas, it should have a little hole in there where the rod can fit. So that's going to just kind of show you where that rod's going. If you don't have a sleeve or a, I guess it would be a sleeve, right, Mom?
Yeah.
Making all the noise with her mic. Man, I
Sorry.
can't give her nice stuff, folks. If you don't have a sleeve, we've seen people make their own.
Yes, you can make your own.
Or we've seen people order their own leaders just to have a sleeve that's already pre-done on it. There's different options out there. But those are just kind of the ones that happen as you go. So what we're going to start off by doing is our loading process. So I'm going to start with my backing fabric. It's kind of where I always start first. And I'm going to grab that real quick. Sorry, should have had that ahead of time.
It's all good.
It happens. So I've got my backing fabric. And I'm going to load this normally like I do. It's going to be pretty side down when we start with the backing. And I just toss that backing fabric right over. Just like that. And I already have a crease in here from how I've had it folded, but if you do, brand new piece of fabric, I would fold it to find your center. And match that up with the center marking that you may or may not have on your leader. It's always nice to have somewhere to start. And then I'm going to come in with the 2-inch clamps that it comes with and begin the snapping process. So I'll have Mom get a little bit closer to me for that. Cool. So I'm going to line up my fabric, grab my little clamp, and clamp it right down on top of the fabric.
Yep.
Are you coming closer?
I was going to get a little bit closer,
Okay.
but just didn't want to make anybody dizzy. All right, go for it.
Cool. So those 2-inch ones, you get 6 in the package, and like we said, you can always add more. I would always grab another pack of 6 because these tend to walk away for some reason.
As you're putting them in your
As
pocket.
you're putting them in my, that's what I do. I leave them in my pocket, and then I go home, and I'm like, here this is. So I'm just going to go, there's no set like measurement that you have to go with these. This is just helping you keep it steady. And then you're going to come in with the big clamps. So I'm just going to keep coming in with those little 2-inch ones all the way until I get to the end. That's going to hold that nice and steady on the frame for me.
Perfect.
Now I'm going to come in with the larger clamp that comes with it in your little set. So these are your larger ones that you get to use. A lot of questions that we get when these are first out of the package. Y'all, these are super duper, I gotta push them almost because I've used mine so much. These are super duper tight right out of the package. So you have to remember that. It's a kind of like a polymer that's been made to be a certain size. So to get a better grip on them, to hop them on without them being super duper uber tight where you're putting all your strength in, I bend mine open. Not too much, but a nice little curve like that. That's going to open this gap up to make it easier. It's not going to overstretch it by any means, so don't go like that. But it opens it up a little bit to make it easier to go on.
And then you already have that built-in curve, so when you're pushing it down, it makes
Exactly.
it easier. Yep.
So we're going to remove our center clip that we put down the little 2-inch one first. I'll toss it in my pocket. I will press this down. Just like that. And like Mom talked about it already having a curve, you can pull this up a little bit to open it up and then push with your other hand. Remove your clamp, keep it open, and push it down, just like that. We'll remove our next clamp, grab our larger one again, give it a nice little bend if it needs it. Place that, and we're going to butt these up right next to each other and begin the clipping process. All the way. Remove our last clamp and pocket that in, just like that. So now that we have this section done, we'll work the other way down the backing. Same process. I'll grab my little clips, clip this on, nice and straight. The best
one thing that I like to do when I'm loading, which is exactly what you're doing, is how you bring the fabric over the rod and kind of put it by the stitch line on the leader to kind of help keep it, even as you go, right?
Yeah,
Does that
and
make sense?
each leader's a little bit different on that stitch line.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have something to
Some kind of
reference to
reference, yeah.
as you're going. So I'm going to hop right in front of the camera real quick and grab more of these. Again, same process here. Give it a little bit of a bend. Don't want to overstretch it by any means. Butt it up and push, and then remove your clamps as you go. All the way down this. Clamp away. Move my machine too. And we're going to push down. till the very end. Now I have a little bit of fabric left over at the end, so I'm going to use one of those 2-inch ones just to close that gap at that very end. So that's why always having a few of those extras on hand is really nice. So I'll begin to load up the fabric, roll up the fabric.
Just so we can see it straight on there really quick.
Oh, Mom, you're funny. She looks at me like, I need to change the camera. What do I do?
Technology keeps changing on me.
So I'll come back to the back of my table, and I'd like to kind of stretch this out, get it nice and flat. Stretch was not the right word. Flatten it out. Flatten it out. Nice and flat back here. And that helps it roll onto my leader just a little bit easier, especially if you have a really, really big quilt. So I'm going to roll this bad boy up all the way. And this helps me walk back and forth. If I need to smoothen out any of my wrinkles, I can do that. And I'm just a rolling as I go. Again, keeping this nice and flat, checking if I have any wrinkles. I'm going to do that just like that. Keep on rolling. I'm going to keep on rolling until right about there. I've got about this much of my fabric hanging down. And what I'm going to do is I will take this, flip it over the front like this. This is my backing, remember? And I'm going to go ahead and grab my pickup roller and bring it to this bar because I'm loading from the front of the machine. It's just a lot easier just to stay up there, especially with the snappers. So I'm going to move through, and I'm going to pull down my pickup bar. My take-up leader, there's a bunch of different names for it. And lay this down. As y'all know, as you work around this, there's always that one side that likes to fall on itself. So that's what I'm doing. Just laying that nice and flat, just like that. So then I'll back up my leader to where that rod that I've already got here in the piece is right there on top. I'm going to take one of my little 2-inch clips. See, I told you there's always that one side that likes to run away from us. Here we go. Grab my my backing, the top of my backing, and begin my clip process. I'll clip that, come down just a little bit, grab another clip, and clip it. Come down just a little bit more, grab a clip, and we'll clip it. That might be a little far. We'll add another one in the center. We don't have to, but we're going to. Boom. So then I'll grab my rod, my clamp. What? I'm just mixing terminology up like crazy today. Give it a little bit of that bend. Remove that first 2-inch one that we put down, and then begin the clipping process. We'll clamp that all the way down. We'll grab another clamp. Thanks, Mom. Give it a little bit of that bend, and continue that process. And we're going to do that all the way to the end, just like that. Repeat the same process going the other direction, just like we did before. So I'll grab a clamp it down, grab another clamp it down, and we'll do one more clamp at the very end, clamp it down. Grab our larger clamps, give it a little bit of a bend, open it up, and begin the pushing process. I kind of sang that last part. The pushing process. Just like this. Always check, make sure fabric is staying as straight as it can in that. Cool. All right. So now what we're going to do is roll up our backing fabric. So I'm going to zoom over here and roll this up. just like that. Now, the way I load my backing is the way that, actually, I think, Mom, did you kind of come up with this idea? Yeah, this video.
Going back and forth.
Kind of rolling it back and forth. This is going to help even it out on the bar. You don't have to do this by any means, but just like overall loading in general is just nice just to roll it back and forth a little bit. Back and forth, back and forth. That, again, just helps even it out. Remember when we first put on that backing, we kind of just threw it on there and said, that looks good, we're going to go with it. But this, we're just going to kind of naturally kind of get all those wrinkles out, those peaks and those valleys out of this. We're going to stop. We'll stop right about there. Beautiful. Just like that. So I have a few wrinkles that I need to move out of this. Not many, but just a few. So I'm just going to give it a nice little pull and just flatten all this out. Beautiful, just like that. Now that I've got my backing on, I'm going to go ahead and grab my batting and put that on here. I'm going to use some poly down today on this quilt.
It'll be soft quilt.
Soft and fluffy and lofty and everything.
Fluffy.
So we're going to grab that poly down, toss it on. This is going to be super lofty. This is going to be cool. So we're going to move that around. Try to get that batting as centered up as possible. I have a lot of extra batting on this, so it might not be perfect in the middle, but that's okay. And then I'll grab my quilt top, and she's eyeing me. Go ahead and base my batting first.
It's always good to baste your batting first. To hold
If
it
you're
in
floating your
place.
quilt top, yeah, it does help. She's
Yeah.
right. All right, let me base down my batting real quick. So I'm just going to do a quick baste. Not a very large, or not a very small stitch on this. Just a stitch nonetheless. I do have a channel lock on this turned on, so I've got a straight horizontal line, which is really nice if you're matching your quilt top up to that to make sure everything's staying nice and straight. I'll do this all the way down. Perfect. Come off to the side here, trim my threads, and then I can grab my quilt top. Boom. Cool. All right, keep that nice and flat.
And there's multiple ways to load batting. I'm just showing you the way that we do it.
Multiple different ways. There's multiple ways to do anything in quilting.
Yeah, and so if you were going to actually red snap your top on, you would put the batting in between your bars, depending on your machine.
Correct.
And then you would attach your top to that third bar. But we're just going to show you the floating method.
I like floating my quilt top. I think I get better control of my quilt top when I do that.
As long as you stabilize along the way, that's
As long as you
very true.
stabilize, yeah. I just get better control. I can shift the batting if I need to. I can shift the quilt top if I need to. I like it. And for those that are new to the channel or new to quilting, floating the quilt top is where it just kind of hangs just down there instead of the end of it being snapped onto a leader.
Correct. And there's different things out there, clamps, magnets, things like that, that you can also use to have just a little bit more extra hold on it.
All sorts of different
Yeah,
options.
lots of fun gadgets out there in the quilting universe.
So now I can base down my quilt top. So I will go ahead and give this a couple of tie-in stitches, and then we'll begin the baste.
And is this a 2-inch base or?
This is a 1/2 inch.
Okay, 1/2 inch.
Base. You could do a 1/4 inch, but I've kind of grown fond of doing the 1/2 inch based. I used to always do a 1/4 inch, but I don't know why I like it. I just do. So I'm just going to go across the top of this, just like so. To that. And then I had this originally really close to us to make it easier for you to do the top basting. If you're going to be doing edge to edge or pantograph work, I always recommend having as much space as you possibly can before you set up anything. So we're going to pull up our needle, and then I will roll the quilt up And then I'll lock my backing bar. As much locking as it really needs. Doesn't really need a whole lot. There it goes. And then I'll base down my sides as well. I always like to have as much stabilization as I can. Again, brushing out any wrinkles that appear if they do. And then we can base down the side. Oh, that was a little bit of a squeaky noise, but I like that I can move them. All right, so I'll pull these up. One little tip when you're basting down your sides, always keep your hand behind the foot as much as possible and kind of pull that fabric back ever so slightly when you're doing it. That's going to help with the overall stretch that the side of the quilt has. If you just let this machine stitch down a basting all the way down, it will slowly shift that fabric down, and then at the corner you're going to have a dog ear. But if you hold behind it as you're basting down, it'll keep that shift from happening.
Good tip.
So we'll do the same thing on this side.
We'll bring over here and show them.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good idea. So I'm gonna start this up, and I'm starting my tie-offs, but then I'm gonna move my hand behind, and I'm gonna push the fabric back away from me. That's gonna hold that nice and steady. When it gets a little too far, I'll move my hand. Again, pushing that fabric away. Move my scissors out of the way, we don't want to stitch over those. And then I can do my little tie-off here at the edge. Nothing too many tie-offs on the base thing because you're going to pull it out anyway at the end of the day. But enough to keep it held down. Snip. Boom. We're ready to start quilting. How fast was that?
That was super fast.
It was pretty quick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quick.
All right, let's see if we have any questions. We'll check that out and then we'll.
Awesome. Okay, well, do we want to move back to our little seating area to answer questions?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Give us just a second.
Gotta rework angles real quick.
Thanks everybody again for watching. We're going to get all to the questions in just a second. Corey, if you see them, you can go ahead and start answering them if you want.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Question, if you have red snappers and decide to quilt on Minky, do you need to take the red snappers out before I pin? Shelly, I would definitely recommend taking out the red snapper rod before you pin. You don't have to break it down completely. You can just kind of set it and leave it down on the corner or down underneath the frame, but I would definitely recommend pulling that out before you pin, just so you don't have to pin around it. You can snap to certain Minkies, but there's not very many of them. There's only like one that's super duper duper thin.
It'd have to be thin.
It would have to be like uber thin for it to work.
For sure.
Successfully. I'm not saying that we haven't clamped before,
Yeah.
but if you accidentally overstretch it, it might pop. And
Exactly.
you don't
It's
want
the
that.
popping off. You just don't,
You don't
want
want the
that.
popping off. That's not fun.
But that was a good question. Definitely.
No.
Take out that rod.
Let's see. Lynn said not to contradict Corey, but I do load my snappers with Minky without any problem. And that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I've just done like some of those really thick Minkies.
Yeah. Probably because we use the Luxe Cuddle and the stuff from
Yeah,
Cuddle.
I'm just so
It's a little
used to
thicker.
the thicker stuff. So yeah, you can definitely use it.
Yeah.
But it's all good. No worries. People said they can barely hear you.
Oh, I'm not sure why. Go ahead.
Maybe you covered up your stuff.
I might have.
Well, that was earlier.
Yeah.
Paula, there will be a replay. This is always saved to our YouTube channel, so you can always watch it and go back. Do you use magnets? Oh, good question, Sandra. We used to use magnets, but after I pinched my finger once with them,
Well, both of us.
both of us,
That hurt.
we decided that we would find a different route.
Yeah.
And this was the route. Even if you did use the magnets, though, you would still have to either pin or snap because the magnets are only for your top.
Yeah, so you definitely would still, like you said, pin or snap. You can use, there's clamps out there that you can use on the front bar or magnets, just whatever choice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Amanda said, you said floating is okay as long as you do what? I don't remember what I said. Floating is always good as long as you're just keeping an eye on it.
Well, as long as you stabilize.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Great minds. Right here. Yeah, as long as you're stabilizing your sides, floating is always good.
Yeah.
The stabilizing on that side is going to help keep it from having as much shrinkage as it would without basting down the sides.
Well, it helps keep it square, right?
Yes,
You want to keep it square the way as you're quilting.
Correct.
So as long as both sides are being basted, so as you would rotate, so like how he did the first section, he would do his edge to edge, his quilting, then he would rotate up and then baste down the sides all the way, the whole way, before you start stitching anything. And that just helps keep it square, keeps the shrinkage the right way, so that way at the end of the day you have the project you want.
Exactly. Virginia said, I was taught to load the backing on the front bottom bar versus the top bar. What are the advantages or disadvantages? Oh, this is actually a really good question.
Depends on the machine.
It all depends on the machine.
Yeah.
So if like for instance on the Innova, the backing bar is up here on top. If you plan on floating your quilt top and it's going to be a big quilt, you can load your backing onto the top bar because it's lower. The advantage to that is your quilting section will always be perfectly flat because there's no excess bulk up here.
That's true.
The disadvantage to that is if you don't watch it carefully, sometimes the leader can attach into the roll and then that backing leader ends up coming off into it. So you just have to watch that.
Yeah, and it's like you said, that just every machine has a different way of loading their backing. So some machines might have their backing bar lower, where some machines have it on the top.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good one.
Good one.
Let's see. What else you got?
Oh, let's go. I just hit the wrong button. Technology. It says, have you or do you recommend using snappers with zipper leaders?
Oh yeah, I've seen it all the time. The only thing, like zipper
You really can't
leaders,
zip them off though.
you really can't zip off you can, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't be ideal. But you can zip off your clamp if you wanted to, but it wouldn't, I don't know if I would.
Yeah, it's basically you're trying to use the two different systems and make it into one system.
Right.
So yes, you could definitely, if you left the zippers on and then just use the leader that was already there, because most of them have holes if you have zippers, and just continuously leaving that leader on with the zipper, you're fine.
As long as you're not unzipping it.
If you're trying to unzip it and zip it off with the rod on there and make it all go back on even, that's a little hard.
Yeah, it would be a little harder because those zippers were originally invented for either if you were basting the quilt on or if you were pinning the quilt so you could bounce between a bunch.
Yeah.
But the red snappers kind of helps with that method.
So what do you use for the sides of your quilts? And we use the side grips.
Use side grips. Yeah, that's what I like to use.
Yeah, we use the side grips and that we have on our website, and sometimes we like to use the little red clamper, the red snapper snips on top of them.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's nice.
Yeah. And then Lynn said, do you use clamps at the end of the loading demo? You said I was ready to quilt. Yeah, I am ready to quilt, but just to have a little extra security, using those side clamps on the sides and then clamping to that is always a plus.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we were just showing you kind of the red snapper version of getting the red snapper part set up, and then you can use whatever side method of holding it that you prefer. We use side grips. There's the regular kind of grips that usually come with machines. There's all kinds
sorts
of
of different grips.
Yeah, but you definitely want a side stabilizer.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's it.
Yeah. I think so. That's lots of great questions.
Really
Thank
good
you guys.
questions,
Really good. If you're watching the video after the fact, please feel free to put the question in there, and we will get that answered for you.
Yeah, I think that's what we saw. I think I saw everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool.
So that just kind of shows you how quick and easy it was to load. This was a 58 by 60 quilt, so you know the backing's always about 8 inches bigger, and he had it loaded with talking within 20 minutes. Had we not been talking and shifting cameras, probably 10, 15 minutes max.
If that, maybe. Yeah,
So,
if that. So
it's definitely a nice system.
super cool system. Super duper cool system. They are available on our website, lindas.com. They're called red snappers. And just always make sure you measure the length of your table before ordering so you can get them.
Yep. Jump on over there and get some.
Alrighty, well thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you next